Legend here, and today we're doing a Rate Your Doomstack video, this time covering Drazoath the Ashen with a Kadai Fireborn Doomstack, which is seemingly beefed up to the absolute max. We're going up against an enemy that this army here is not really that well suited for. Kadai Fireborn are primarily anti-infantry units, and this is a almost entirely anti-large army. We've got a Rite of Primeval Glory army here with max experience, commanded by Gorok, and then two other forces, a settlement garrison and another army. Two units in this army here, this Scar veteran and the Sacred Coxagor, have magical attacks, which is going to be a little bit of a problem for units that have extremely high physical resistance. But luckily these Demon Smith sorcerers, they are on a Lamassu, which can strip them of their magical attacks as long as they're basically hovering right above it. So what we want to be doing in this battle here is relying as much as possible on the Kadai Fireborn to actually win the battle, and the heroes will just be providing support using buff and debuff spells to cause as much, so that these guys here can cause as much damage as possible. We've also got the Hellforge unit upgrades of Barrier plus 800, Attribute Perfect Vigor, and Attribute Unbreakable, so that's going to be really handy. And if we have a look at Drazoath the Ashen, he has an item here, the Healing Salve of Valea, which provides melee defense and physical resistance for all units in the army. We've also got a banner, which doesn't currently apply the physical resistance until we actually get into the battle, but it provides physical resistance in a 35 meter radius. We've also got a banner here that provides 4 melee defense in a 35 meter radius. So I think that this is basically maxed out. I know you can get more Hellforge unit upgrades, but I know that some of them just aren't going to be of any value, so I think these are the main ones that are going to be good. Alright, let's jump in here and see what we can do. Now, against 3 armies on very hard battle difficulty, the auto-resolve gave us a win with no units wiped out. But it still gave us a Pyrrhic victory, so we want to try to do better than what the auto-resolver said, but that was still a really good result out of auto-resolve, especially considering what we're going up against here. Like, a lot of Doomstacks in this game would struggle to beat this. Especially with Gorok commanding. Especially considering these are anti-infantry. Now, because of the way that our army has got so many really good buffs in a small area, going really wide and charging at the enemy, I don't think is the best option. And I know that some people don't like doing this, and you don't have to in your own armies, but I think if we want to get the most out of this army, we need to blob up. A lot of people do seem to think that going into a blob makes your army vulnerable, but it doesn't really, because getting flanked doesn't really do any significant damage to your army. And when staying in this blob here is the difference between 55% physical resistance or even 60 or 70% physical resistance, it makes a big difference where we're going to be a lot tougher together. Also, this allows us to pull out units that are damaged and put them in the back so that they can have their hit points regenerated through the Demon Forge ability, but also so their barrier can restore. So try to make it nice and tight there, and then put Drazoath the Ashen right in the middle. I'm going to put all these guys here in guard mode so they don't... Oh, I've got one over there. So they don't go wandering around. It might also be better to put them in the forest. I know some people wouldn't be like, but you'll lose 20% melee attack. Yeah, that's fine, because losing 20% melee attack is fine because most of their monsters are, well, most of their army is monsters as well. They're going to lose 20% melee attack as well. And what this will protect us against is missile units. Their missiles are just going to hit trees. Okay, so Drazoath the Ashen in the middle, and put these ones here on the flank. Like that. So that they're covering the bases that which they're going to attack us from. We're going to take a defensive position. We're going to wait for the enemy forces to show up and come at us. Now, in terms of which abilities I will use and which I won't, so let's start getting control group ready. I'll also go fast forward, just wait for the reinforcements to come in. I'll use anything that is either a buff or debuff, but I'm not going to rely on Drazoath wiping out the enemy forces with Flames of Asgore. So I'll use Stand or Die. I won't use Darkened Mist. I won't use Flame and Shadow. I won't use Flaming Breath. I won't use the Graven Scepter, although that's not, it doesn't matter. I don't intend to send him into melee. Yeah, I'll use all of these abilities, that's fine. Okay, that one's got one of these. Yeah, so all of their abilities over here are fair game. But I'm not going to use anything that's like a damage spell. I will use the Ash Storm ability. That'd be good to reduce their fire weakness by 20%. Now you can double up on Ash Storm by single casting it and overcasting it. It will stack if you do that. So you can get it to 40% flame weakness, because all of them have got flaming attacks. But yeah, because this army here is so resistant, what we want to do here is try to reduce the amount of damage that the AI is doing to us, and also reduce the frequency that they're landing a hit, so that it gives more time for their barrier to regenerate. We've got more regeneration capabilities than what they do, so we're counting on that. What are some other spells? In terms of the flaming stuff, I can use Flaming Sword of Ruin, but increasing the base weapon damage by 30%, I don't think is going to do very much. Yeah, it really isn't going to do very much. So I won't bother with that, it'll just be a waste of magic. In terms of the army abilities, I'll only use the Armor of Contempt. I won't do any of these other ones here. Not that any of them are really going to be that effective in this battle here due to how many monsters there are. But I think this is a good test for this army. Yeah, go up against a powerful enemy, put these guys in the best position that they can so that these guys here can perform as well as possible. Fire Leech Bowlers are going to do nothing because we have 35% physical resistance on top of the 65%. So what's that, 90? No, that's 100% resistance. Well, 90% really, because that's the max it can get. Okay, just checking to see where the magical attack dudes are. There's the Sacred Croxagores. We need to make sure somebody hovers over them when they come over here. The center of their unit needs to be within this like blue circle here. And what about that other Saurus Scar veteran? It's not that one. It's this one here, okay. If you could just come out a bit more this way. And we'll see here. Yep, good. He had his magical attacks deprived, so he's not going to do very much damage to us now. Also, the longer we're in combat, we get the blazing body, which is giving melee damage, reflection, and physical resistance. So we want the battle to go on as long as possible. Alright, let's start putting down buffs and debuffs. And let's start using Ash Storm. And if you overcast it, you'll see here that we'll actually have it. Yeah, there it is. It's there twice. So you can see here the damage isn't too bad. This one is taking a little bit. So let's use this ability. The problem with using this one here is that it doesn't restore any units that have been destroyed. So you kind of have to use it very early if you want to keep them at 16 numbers, because what ends up happening is like just one of them is taking all the damage, they'll end up killed. So it's much better against single entities, which, you know, you can restore to full from the brink of death. See, look at that one there. Already lost one. Okay, let's have Drazoath do the overcast this time. And this one do a regular cast. Got a few debuffs to put down here and there. Don't worry about that one. But overall, we are not taking very much damage here, which is exactly what we want to do. This is why I put them in the forest. Doesn't matter if the battle goes on longer, because we've got durability on our side. They don't. The longer the battle goes on, the more physical resistance we get. And yeah, they just keep getting better. This one here is taking a bit too much damage. I'm going to move it to the back. Alright, time for some more Ash Storms. And yeah, I really should be having Drazoath do the overcasting because he's got the barrier. Get some more melee defense there. Yeah, it's all pretty crazy in there. It's fine. Good, we got some units that restore their barrier every now and again. That's good to see. Okay, let's get another Ash Storm down. And I'll get you to overcast it since Drazoath is on cooldown. So just checking on them. They all should still be having, yeah, the Oath of Contempt. That's really important. I think this one here could use another heal. Oh, I should have done that one actually. Yeah, no, it's still healing. Yeah, okay. Yeah, still got the Oath of Contempt. Good, good, good. Yep, they're slowly working their way towards the absolute maximum physical resistance they can get, which is 75%. They just need to be in melee for a certain amount of time. Good, barrier is coming back. So that Feral Dreadsaurian there did 3,200 damage, which... that's a fair amount, but our units are not good against this troop. And that's a Dreadsaurian as well. And our guys are starting to push forward a little bit. Okay, we need to keep going with the Ash Storms. Still get enemy reinforcements coming in, but it's mostly weak stuff. Alright, the units that have had their barrier restored, we should try to get them to push forward. Let them do the fighting, while the ones that don't have barrier, sit back and relax a little bit. Good, we've also got a brass cleaver in there, so one of them must equip it. So that one there with the magical attacks, it managed to do 3,000 damage. Cool. That's not that much. These guys here have just shy of 8,000 health. This one here has moved out of the position, so it's not getting the buffs. But it's almost won that fight there, so I'm not going to change course. Okay, I'm out of the demon for reforge ability. Is Gorok still in there, or what's happened to him? He'd be unbreakable at this point in the campaign, so he must be gone. I don't see him anywhere. Alright, let's take all of our guys here and attack one target. This will allow them to sort of bunch up again because they sort of spread out a little bit. Just have Drazoath fly over them. He really took a handful of casualties. I think using this army in this specific way here is the real reason that we didn't take much damage. If I had spread out and just rushed at the enemy, guaranteed some of these guys would have gotten absolutely smashed in the battle just because of the strength of something that we're facing here. Okay, this guy's been shooting the whole time and only done 1,000 damage. I think that's largely thanks to the trees. Get some more Ash Storm. Nothing too severe at the moment. We don't need to go ham on it that much. Although we've got heaps of Winds of Magic, it's just because there's not really that much coming at us. I don't think the enemy have any spellcasters, so I can't use this ability here. Good, most of their barriers are coming back now. Because yeah, if you want to kill this, you have to kill it really quickly, and you can't need to use magical attacks. And that was the whole thought behind putting them in the forest, to slow down the battle as much as possible, so the barrier could get as much value as possible. Keep on moving as well. There shouldn't be any more magical attacks left in the battle. So these guys also have the flammable ability there. So, okay, there's the army losses. So we should be inflicting essentially 60% weakness to fire. 40 there, probably because they went out of melee. So what's left here to fight? Oh, there's Gorok. Right, sneaking in there. So Gorok only managed to do 2,000 damage. And he's regenerating as well, which is actually kind of not necessarily working against him, but we can essentially get him 80% weak. There we go. Wow. That is pretty minimal damage for what we went up against there. These are not units that are good against large troops. Not at all. But having so many of them essentially at full health, that's insane. Much better than auto resolve yielded, and that was a really good auto resolve result too. Another reason for blobbing up is spread out casualties, which we've got there for the most part, which means one turn of recovery and then max out. See, when you spread out, what might end up happening is that one unit might fight a particular enemy that's very strong and take lopsided damage. Like, one of the worst things that can happen in these sort of battles here, if you're in a tough situation in your campaign, is seeing half your army walk away with no damage and the other half nearly obliterated, because replenishment just happens as a flat amount across the entire army. People do snub their nose at blobs quite a bit, but there's a reason why I use them. In the right situation, they can be devastating. Of course, in the wrong situation, they can completely screw you over. You know, if you're using a whole bunch of infantry and you just blob up and then they pop down a flamestorm on top of you, well then you shouldn't do that. But they had no ability to do that, and I checked that beforehand. We can get a little bit of replenishment. Almost doesn't seem worth it. I don't need to send so far back, so I'll just take the labor. Which is usually what I do. I think we were the attacker in the scenario here. Now I just want to check to see if he's done everything he possibly can to make this as strong as possible. Because there's a lot that you can do with your Doom stacks with the Chaos Dwarfs. Alright. I wonder if we should have used the Banner of Eternal Flame for an extra base weapon damage plus 8%. Because we've got flaming attacks anyway. So that might have actually been useful. We missed out on dishing out 3 extra damage per hit. Alright, so having a look at the skills here. I'm assuming he did all the right ones. Yeah, that's fine. Looking at the technologies. Military, yeah, so he did the stuff that boosts Kadai. He didn't research Total War, which gives him maximum Hellforge upgrades plus 2. So if we have a look, what could he have potentially gotten there? Here it is. Alright, so what did he miss out on? Missile block chance 35% from all sides. That's pretty good. Missile resistance 15%. Both of those would have been really good. Forge fire. Charge bonus, devastating flanker. Alright, I wasn't really making use of either of those situations, so that's fine. But yeah, you could potentially make them a little bit better with the missile block chance and missile resistance. Essentially giving it, what, 50% missile resistance? I mean, that's really nitpicking. It's just that you could do that, that's all. You would need to research that Total War technology, though. And then there's also Forge Fire. That would be good as well, but not essential. Okay, so it's not 100% maxed out teams. And also, this one here isn't quite at max experience. So therefore, completely disqualified Doomstack. He didn't max it out. No, I'm just kidding. So, based on what it went up against and the utility of this army, I would say that this is pretty much a 10 out of 10. I think he's essentially perfected it. The stuff that he didn't get for it is trivial. You know, going up against a lot, like an army that's full of large units is something that you shouldn't be doing with this army, and it handled it. If it can handle that, then it can pretty much handle anything. You know, it can easily take out Empire armies. If they've got tons of artillery, just charge at them. So infantry-based armies like dwarfs, this wouldn't have any problem with. The only thing that it might struggle with is maybe high elves that have like a lot of dragon princes, because they tend to have a lot of flame resistance. So that would be a problem. But apart from that, I really can't see any sort of army that this would have very little effect on. So it should be able to win in most cases. So yeah, it's essentially, it's either a 10 out of 10 or a 9.5 out of 10. It does depend on what it's going up against. But yeah, the only unit I can really see giving this one a really hard time are Dragon Princes, just because of the fire resistance. Anyway, that's the end of the, and of course you can strip them of their fire resistance anyway, using those spells. So maybe it's not that much of a concern after all. Alright, anyway, that's the end of this one here, guys. Really appreciate this one being sent in. Definitely maximum effort was put into it, and I do appreciate that. Sometimes they get sent in Doomstacks where it's barely even started building the Doomstack, and I oftentimes have to reject it, say you got to do this, and this in order to fix it up, but that's not the case here. Anyway, that's the end of this one. Appreciate you guys. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Later, guys.